Try to picture this. It's 4:17 in the morning on the Somme, the kind of cold that doesn't just sting your skin. It drills straight into your bones. Fog clings to the trench lip so thick that every droplet slips down with a sound almost metallic, as if the air itself is coughing up shrapnel. Down in that damp pit of earth and fear, a British squad crowds together shoulder to shoulder, breathing in the stink of sweat, mud, and half-burned powder left over from the artillery barrage. And there, walking behind them with the calm of a man who's seen far too much, is Sergeant Hale. He presses his hand against the nape of each man, forcing their heads down, lower than they think makes sense, until their necks strain and their cheeks scrape against wet fabric. And he keeps whispering this strange number. 17 degrees. Almost like a prayer. Or a curse. Or maybe something in between. No one knows what the number means. No one asks. Because in this place, on this front, men don't need explanations. They need survival. Above them, German artillery starts searching for range. Chunks of the trench wall tear loose, raining dirt onto helmets and shoulders. Hale reaches up with a bayonet, scraping away the mud blocking their view, then raps his knuckles sharply on Jones's helmet. Lower. 2 degrees higher and you'll meet the grazing line. He says it like he's reciting a technical manual. No drama. No fear. Just fact. A private tries to lift his head to cough. A perfectly human reaction. And instantly Hale's hand slams him back into the dirt. Not gently. Not kindly. Just necessarily. Because Hale knows something most men don't. The MG08 doesn't aim at people. It aims at spaces. At a flat, horizontal sheet of death hovering exactly where an upright neck would appear. A straight neck, Hale mutters, is a straight corpse. A shell detonates behind them, shaking the trench floor. Wet dirt slides down the walls and sticks to their collars, pushing their heads even lower. A flare bursts overhead, slicing through the fog just long enough to show the earth above them. Cleanly carved at chest height by machine gun fire. You don't need to be a mathematician to understand what that means. You just need to have lived here long enough. Hale looks once, calculates the trajectory in a heartbeat, and checks his line of helmets again, each one tucked safely under that lethal plane by mere centimeters. Then the bell rings. Not loud, not dramatic, just inevitable. MG08 fire rolls forward like a sheet of iron tearing across the air. Steady, purposeful, merciless. The squad climbs out of the trench, one by one, but not a single man stands upright. They run bent over, gazes locked on the ground a few meters ahead, as if the earth is the only thing in this world worth looking at. Because to look anywhere else would mean raising their heads into the exact space where the MG08 does its work. The platoon beside them isn't so lucky. Some of those men come out with straighter necks. Proud, human, unaware. That pride and posture mean nothing here. They're erased in seconds. No screams. No drama. Just bodies collapsing like a film reel cut mid-frame. Hale's squad pushes forward. Not faster. Not braver. Just lower. 17 degrees lower. The distance between life and death measured not in meters, but in angles. Tiny, ridiculous, almost comical angles. And yet, those few degrees are the only reason they aren't lying beside the others. A question hangs in the air. The kind Dan Carlin himself might whisper to his audience. Was this survival the product of hard-earned battlefield intuition? Or just another moment when the statistical roulette wheel of the Western Front spared one group and claimed another? No one in that trench knew the answer. Maybe no one ever will. Try standing there for a moment, right inside the choking Somme fog, when the MG08 begins to speak. It doesn't chatter. It doesn't roar. It hums. A deep, steady, mechanical hum, like a steel door being dragged across the sky. The MG08 doesn't need to see you. Doesn't need to aim at you. It only needs to do what it was engineered to do with terrifying consistency. Create a flat, horizontal plane of bullets, a ceiling of hot metal, hanging exactly at the height of a soldier's neck the second he climbs out of the trench. If you touch that plane, you don't survive it. You vanish under it. And at nearly 900 meters per second, a bullet stops being a mere object. It becomes an equation, and equations don't negotiate with human beings. That morning, the air over the Somme was thick with humidity. Over 90%. You could literally feel the moisture on your skin like an extra layer of weight. In that kind of air, MG08 rounds behave differently. They stay flatter, straighter, more stable, and infinitely more lethal. A tiny, invisible shift in the weather, becoming a silent partner to a German machine gun. None of Hale's men knew the physics behind it. Nobody crouched in that trench was doing mental calculations about velocity decay in dense air. They only knew this. Anyone who raised their head was erased in less than a heartbeat. And here's where things get disturbing. Under chaos, the human brain begins reading the battlefield in ways we still don't understand. A patch of soil freshly kicked up, a thread of heat slicing past an ear, a single blade of grass cut clean at eye level. Small things, almost nothing, yet enough for the oldest part of the human mind to whisper, lower. Now, this isn't logic. It isn't training. It's survival encoded in muscle and bone long before history even began. A soldier can't witness a bullet's trajectory, but somehow, his body senses the geometry around him, as if the air is sending warnings. Don't rise. Don't straighten your neck. Don't challenge the physics. And then comes the real, unsettling question. If a machine gun can turn life and death into a matter of geometry, then what is a soldier's life worth on this front? Is survival anything more than being in the right place, at the right angle, in the right fraction of a second? Or are we simply watching a cold, indifferent universe draw a perfect horizontal line between those who live and those who don't? Imagine dragging yourself out of that trench, body bent, head forced down, breath turning into white shards in the freezing air. The moment the squad clears the lip, the battlefield opens before them. A flat stretch of mud, torn and cratered. 200 meters of nothing but hope and mathematics. To their right, another unit climbs out with straighter necks. More human posture. The kind of stance instinct gives you when you want to see what's ahead. They don't make it 3 steps. They fall the way film frames cut. Clean, sudden, like someone hit pause on their existence. Hale's squad moves differently. Their world is reduced to the 2 meters of mud directly in front of their boots. Not because they want to see less, but because seeing more would mean lifting their heads into the MG08's ceiling of fire. Every breath hurts. Every step sends a splash of cold mud across their faces. Every instinct screams to rise up, to run like a human being instead of a bundle of nerves curled toward the earth. But then it happens. The MG08 shifts. Not much, just a slight adjustment, a routine correction any trained gun crew makes. It takes them 4 seconds to reacquire targets after losing sight in fog. 4 seconds, a tiny, absurd window in a war where entire battalions vanish in minutes. And Hale's squad runs straight into that gap. A round slices the air above them, so close it sounds like a heated wire being whipped through fog. It hits the ground a few meters ahead, carving a perfect arc of mud to the right. Then another. 2 arcs, parallel, identical. This is how you know the gun is lowering. The arcs act like chalk marks on a blackboard, showing where the next sweep will land. And that sweep is coming down. Fast. Hale glances sideways, just enough to gauge the remaining distance. 40, maybe 50 meters. Ahead of them lies a natural dip in the terrain, barely half a meter deep. A dead contour, as the maps called it. To anyone else, it's nothing. To Hale, it's salvation carved accidentally by nature. He doesn't shout orders. He doesn't need to. He just tucks his head even lower. pressing his helmet so far down that it almost grazes his own spine. And the men behind him follow automatically, like vertebrae in a single, terrified organism. Then the MG08 slams downward another half notch. The next sweep tears across the mud behind them, shredding the ground at a height only a few centimeters above where an upright man's neck would be. If Hale's squad had been running straight, not bent at 17 degrees, they would have been erased exactly like the others. But they aren't, because of a number no one fully understands, a gesture no one questioned, a tiny sliver of instinct carved into the morning air. They dive into the contour, a synchronized crash of bodies hitting the earth, mud exploding upward, the world roaring above them in lines of fire and heat. They don't cry out, they don't celebrate, they just breathe, the kind of breath men only take when they realize they should already be dead. And that's when the question returns, the one history never resolves. Was it training, instinct, luck, or did the universe simply decide that, for these few seconds, the math of the MG08 would miss? Just slightly? They hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind out of men who haven't had real breath in minutes. The contour they'd thrown themselves into isn't even a trench. It's a shallow ripple in the earth, a wrinkle in the battlefield barely half a meter deep. But right now, it is the only shape in the world that matters. The squad lies pressed together, shoulders overlapping, helmets nearly touching the mud. Their breath is thin, shallow, the way men breathe when even air feels dangerous. Above them, the MG08 continues its work. Not seeing, not aiming, just sweeping, a mechanical side, cutting through fog and noise, shaving away centimeters of air at a time. Each burst rips past just overhead, close enough that the heat of the rounds evaporates moisture off the mud, filling the air with a thin, metallic mist. The gun crew is searching, not for individuals, but for a pattern, for the rhythm of human movement. And yet, somehow, they miss this one spot, this tiny dip in the ground that no mapmaker ever thought to highlight. A place where you live if you find it, and die if you don't. Hale keeps his head pressed so low that his neck burns with numbness. He doesn't dare lift it, not even a fraction, because he knows something the rest of the squad only senses. If they rise too soon, the MG08 won't need to adjust. They'll adjust themselves, straight into its plane of fire. The men beside him tremble, partly from cold, partly from adrenaline, but mostly from the knowledge that one wrong move will drag them into a geometry they cannot survive. You can almost hear their thoughts in the silence between bursts. Don't move. Don't lift your head. Don't give the universe an excuse. Fog shifts, just a little, enough for the machine gunners to see shapes again, or think they do. The next burst sweeps lower. Earth erupts several meters ahead, then several meters behind, a tightening circle, a closing hand. If the squad had landed anywhere else, if their timing had been off by a second, if Hale hadn't trusted that absurd angle, they wouldn't be lying here. They'd be lying elsewhere, and flatter. But here is the part that haunts you, the part Dan Carlin would lean into, letting the room fall silent for just a breath. Did Hale save them? Did physics save them? Did luck save them? Or did the landscape itself, a meaningless, accidental contour, decide who lived that morning? Because when the fog finally thins, and the MG08 shifts focus toward new prey, the squad rises from the earth like men reborn, mud-covered, shaking, alive in a place designed to erase life, and the battlefield stays silent on the question that will follow them forever. Was this survival, or was it simply that someone else died in their place? When the guns finally fall silent, and the fog lifts just enough to reveal what's left of the field, the squad doesn't celebrate. They don't shout. They don't cheer. They don't even speak. They just stand there, mud from their helmets to their boots, trying to understand why they're still breathing, when so many men around them aren't. And maybe that's the cruelest truth of all. War doesn't reward skill. It doesn't honor courage. It doesn't even punish mistakes consistently. Sometimes it just chooses. A gust of wind, a shift in humidity, a shallow dip in the ground no one ever mapped, a neck angled at 17 degrees instead of 15. Tiny things, ridiculous things, things too small to notice in the moment, but large enough to decide the entire fate of a squad. And long after the smoke clears, after the bodies are carried away, after the battlefield becomes history, one question continues to echo through time. Did these men survive because of what they did, or because the universe simply allowed them to? Nobody on the Somme could answer that. Nobody can answer it now. And maybe that's the only answer war ever truly gives.